Hello, and welcome to the show Writing in the Tiny House. The entire point of this podcast is to help the tormented artist by sharing what I know about writing, publishing, and stress management so that you can have the tools to produce the content that you have been eager to write. If you have the steps in place, you can produce a short story in as few as 3 months or a novel in as few as 18 months. And hopefully through the ideas in this podcast, you will have the wisdom to adjust that timeline if you need to. I am Devin Davis, the guy who lives and writes in a tiny house in northern Utah. Thank you for tuning in, and please enjoy today's episode of Writing in the Tiny House. Guys, good morning. It is November 30th, and I don't know if you can hear it in my voice or not. You probably can. I'm a little bit chesty today. We are a little bit gravelly, and I will get into why here in a little minute, but how are you? It's like I haven't seen you in about 3 weeks. If you have been listening to the show every week, you know that I did a couple of reruns. Well, I did 3 reruns during the month of November, and I think that was okay. I really think that was okay. So they were great episodes. They were really successful for the show when they first aired. And so it was perfectly all right to celebrate those episodes by running them again. But here we are. It is November 30th. It is the final day of NaNoWriMo. I hope that you guys are finishing strong and that you are getting the word count that you have desired and all of the things. I feel that NaNoWriMo is a great thing if it works out. It's really hard to get 50,000 words in a month. And especially if kind of the rug is pulled out from underneath you partway through the month, like I am about to share with you. So during those rerun episodes, I mentioned at the beginning of, like, just to introduce the re-release of those episodes, I mentioned that I was doing that because it was freeing up some time for me to write, which is true. For the first little second, it did work that way. So I put together those 3 episodes kind of all at the same time and released them on a schedule. And it was a good thing to do. It was a good way to kind of manage things in November. And with NaNoWriMo, I definitely started out strong. And I had every intention and every plan on finishing with 50,000 words this month. I knew exactly how many words a day I needed to do. I knew how many days off I could take. I knew that if I took additional days off, like what that would do as far as making up that time. I had all of that planned out, and I was taking care of myself. I was relaxing when I needed to relax, and I had the time carved out every single day for me to write, including the days when I have my kids. So here in the tiny house, there is certainly a lack of privacy, especially when the kids are here. And sometimes it can be challenging to find a quiet moment to sit down and write. But I was finding ways to do it. I was getting it done. And I made good headway for the first while. I mean, I think that the first day of NaNoWriMo for me was an 8,000 word day, which is super cool. I'll get into that in a future episode, just because that was a really big thing for me. And I just kind of did it. And I did it all on my own. And like I said, I made good headway and I made good time. And I did all of the things right there for a while. And then catastrophe struck. So this is what happened. It is so frustrating when things like this do happen. But I am a firm believer that unless we intentionally slow down and take care of some things, sometimes our bodies will force us to slow down and do it that way. I don't have like cancer or anything like that, but I got sick, and I got sick in a really big way. The second Friday of November, I think was the day. It was a Friday. I had a little bit of a tickle in the back of my throat and the impending sense of doom that comes with that. And then I got hugely sick. And for the first weekend, I had my kids with me. For the second weekend, I think I still did. I was bouncing back and forth on the weekends that was kind of hard to manage and really kind of a strange situation. But this is the story. So I had a very unusual case of strep. So for those of you who are familiar with strep is a sore throat and a fever, and usually they are bad. However, with strep, in almost every case, they don't have additional symptoms to those symptoms. And so if you come in and you are also throwing up, they don't expect that you have strep. You still might get tested for it, but they don't expect that you'll have strep. Or if you come in with a lot of coughing and a lot of upper respiratory symptoms, they will not suspect you of having strep, just because almost every time strep is usually just those two symptoms. And like I said, they're bad symptoms. They get bad. I mean, the fever's awful and the sore throat is painful, but it's usually just that, and treats very easily with an antibiotic, and it's great, right? So I went into the doctor, and my doctor spotted a spot on my tonsil and said, this is probably nothing, but let's get it tested. And lo and behold, I had strep. And here were my symptoms. I did not have a fever. I did not have a sore throat. And I was throwing up all day long. I have not thrown up that much probably in my entire adult life, with the exception of that weekend. Probably if we combined all of the times, they would not amount to this number of times. Luckily I'm in a tiny house. I'm always near a place. What a silly thing to be talking about on a podcast about writing. I was sick. I couldn't keep food down. I was starving. I was also super dehydrated. And so in the event that I finally could keep food down, which was 3 days into this, I had not had food stay in my stomach long enough for 3 solid days. And I was weak. I was dehydrated. I felt awful. I also had a headache and eye pain and all of the things. We finally got me an antibiotic and things cleared up for a couple days. And then something settled into my upper respiratory tract just in time for Thanksgiving. And so I got better for like a day and then got sick again. And so I have been ill. I have been ill for maybe 18 days out of this month. 18 days. And the thing is, I don't think that's an exaggeration. And like I said, it was accompanied by headache and eye pain and throwing up. And the thing is, with all of that, guys, it's not possible to write. And as I say that, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, duh, you need to take care of yourself. But with all of the preparation that I did for NaNoWriMo, it was a really big letdown and a big disappointment to have to let those expectations go. And the thing is, like, I have people who follow me on NaNoWriMo. I have this podcast that I report to as a way to stay on track. And so you can still hear in my voice that I am not 100% yet. And so it's not like I am beating myself up and causing a bigger problem by pushing myself beyond limits and stuff in order to get some things done. But I don't know, when you have a goal and you plan a lot for that goal and you spread the word that the goal is going to be happening and we're all super excited about it. And then at the end of the month, it's like, hey, I got sick for more than 2 weeks. It's a big disappointment. And so this is kind of the message of today's little episode. With the setbacks like that, what do you do? Like, what do you do when things don't work out the way that you want them to work out, or because of things coming up? There are things that come up and they are legitimate things. If you are an adult, if you have kids, if you are a single person and you are just doing life, regardless of your schedule and regardless of what your lifestyle looks like, things come up all the time. And writing is such a big project, especially if it is not your full-time job. I mean, it is still a big project if it is your full-time job, but progress happens more slowly if it is not your full-time job. And if you have 100 other things that are demanding your attention, it just becomes even more tricky. And so sometimes we get to give ourselves a little bit of grace and carry on. And so I am going to be finishing this NaNoWriMo endeavor, this race to the finish line. I'm going to be finishing at just over 20,000 words. And I can sit here and feel bad about it. And I have a number of times. That's not what my goal was. However, it's still a great start. I mean, I got sick. How many different ways do we need to remind ourselves that when we are sick, we get to take a break, whether or not it is convenient. I also missed a lot of work, and it carried over Thanksgiving. I mean, my holiday was spent dealing with a headache and eye pain and kind of puttering around my kitchen trying to bake something in preparation for our Thanksgiving dinner. It wasn't ideal, and it seems that everybody was sick. My kids were sick too. So when things like this happen, it is simply a matter of carrying on. We just carry on. So I've made good progress in my book already. I mean, 20,000 words is great. It's a great start. And the book has not been ruined. The book has not been damaged or spoiled in any way. And I still have all of my notes, and I still have all of the preparation and stuff that I did for NaNoWriMo. All of that's still here. It's not like it somehow expires. It's not like I was baking a cake and left my cake out for days on end and now the cake's no good. That's kind of not how writing works. Nothing is ruined. Some things were delayed, but nothing is ruined. And yeah, in regards to the first draft, I've said this before and I'll say it again. The role of the first draft, the only thing that the first draft has to do in order for the first draft to be successful is to exist. The point of the first draft is to be written, and then you do all of the cleanup after. And so first drafting can still happen, and so it will. I mean, my energy is still not back to 100%, and I still have to go to work and support myself that way. Writing is not my full-time job quite yet, and so we still get to do other things and carve out about 10 hours of our day to another full-time job. So we carry on. That is the whole point of this episode, guys. We carry on. And even if you did make it to the 50,000 word mark this month, first of all, kudos. That's super great and good for you. However, 50,000 words probably isn't the end of your novel, especially if you're writing fantasy fiction. You probably have at least another 50,000 to go. And so the whole point with this is to encourage you to keep going, keep moving forward, keep doing all the things, keep drafting. And once you're done with your draft, we can worry about the revisions. And so here we are. The whole point is just to write and to get it done, to get it on paper, or to get it in, a digital way that exists. So carry on, my friends. I know that I will be, even with setbacks like this and recovering from illness and all of the things that we've been doing. So thank you for tuning in. I hope that your NaNoWriMo experience has been a good one. I hope that you have enjoyed the 3 episodes that I reran during this month. It was actually a good thing. I said that I was doing those episodes as a way to free up time for me to write, which really wasn't a lie, but what I was doing was freeing up time for me to heal, for me to get better. And today is the first day in 3 weeks that I have felt good enough to podcast. I mean, granted, I don't sound very nice, but yeah, thanks for sticking with me. Thank you for being a part of this journey, and thank you for tuning in. So onward and upward, my friends, and we will see you next week on another episode of Writing in the Tiny House.
And that is it for today. Go ahead and follow me on social media. On Instagram, I am at author Devin Davis. On Twitter, I am at author Devin D. And I also have an account on TikTok. Go ahead and find my information in the show notes of this episode. And remember that my short story Brigitte, which was published last fall, is available on Amazon as an ebook and on Audible as an audiobook. Go ahead and check those things out today. And be sure to join me on next week's episode of Writing in the Tiny House. Run by copy editor Chrissy Barton, Little Syllables Editing is a reliable resource for anyone looking to improve their manuscript. Chrissy does line edits, copy edits, and the final proofread for experienced writers and newbies alike. Go to littlesyllables.com and reach out to Chrissy today. A link is in the show notes.